morning everyone. Today we are going to be covering volume and surface area. So our intent for today's session is to recap area and perimeter, calculate the volume of cubes, cuboids and cylinders, calculate the surface area of cubes, cuboids and cylinders, and complete some problem questions. So first, with our area and perimeter recap, we have our three shapes. We've got our rectangle, we've got our triangle, and we've got our circle. So to calculate the areas first, we know we do the length times the width with any rectangle, so 8 times by 3, which then gives us 24 metres squared. Then the area of our triangle, we've got our base times our height divided by 2. Our base is 6 multiplied by our height, which is 10, divided by 2, which then gives us 30 metres squared. And then finally our circle. We have got our area. Always our formula first, pi times radius, 3.14 times 4 times 4, so inevitably 3.14 times 16, which gives us, bless me, apologise, 50.24 metres squared. Okay, let's now do perimeter. Let's change our colour pen for our perimeter. So our perimeter, we know we're going to do our length, add our length, add our width, add our width. So we're going to do 8, add 8, add 3, which then gives us 22 metres. No need for squared because it's just perimeter. The perimeter of our triangle, now we have an equilateral triangle. So our sides are all 6. So then 6 add 6 add 6 gives us 18 metres. And then we have our perimeter of our circle. So pi times diameter, we always write out our formulas, 3.14. Our radius is 4. The diameter is 4 times 2, which is then 8 metres. So 3.14 times 8 gives us 25.12 metres. And that is our recap of area and perimeter. Okay, what we are now going to have a look at is volume. So volume and surface area apply to 3D shapes. So area, perimeter, think 2D flat shapes. Volume and surface area, 3D shapes. Volume is the amount of space inside a shape, and it's always measured in units that are cubed. So it's centimetres cubed, metres cubed, inches cubed, feet cubed. And we calculate the volume by doing the length times the width times the depth. So here we have a cuboid, which is a 3D rectangle. So here we do 2 times 3 times 1. 2 times 3 is 6 times 1, and it's 6 metres cubed. Say now we have a cube, and we're only actually given one length, which is 5 metres. What do we know about cubes? All the sides are the same. So here we're going to do 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125 metres cubed. So what I want you to have a go at, I want you to have a go now at calculating the volume of these 3 cuboids and cubes. Okay, A. So we've got 4 times 3 times 6, which gives us 72 centimetres cubed. We've got 8 times 2 times 3, which gives us 48 millimetres cubed. And then we've got 5 times 5 times 5, which just cheeky because I've just done that with you, 125 centimetres cubed. Well done if you got all of those. So now we can have a look at what we call compound shapes. So as we know from flat compound shapes, a compound shape is made up of more than one. say we had a compound cuboid, a little bit like, think of a chocolate bar, okay? And your segments are all your little kind of rectangle cubes within that, cuboids within that. To work out the volume of a compound shape, we just need to split it. So here, we're going to split it here. We're going to imagine that it's split right here, and we're going to have shape 1 and shape 2. So as we can see below, our measurements are 5 centimeters, 15, and then because we've got from here to here is 5, and from here to here is 5, we know that altogether is 10. So 5 times 15 times 10 is 750. Multiplied by 120, add 125 gives us 875 centimeters cubed. And that is how we break up compound shapes. So the next volume we are going to look at is cylinders. And the formula to work out the volume of a cylinder is what we call pi r squared h, or pi times radius times the height. So looking at this cuboid, imagine that it had a radius of 3 meters and a height of 10. We are going to do 3.14 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 10. So we can pop that into our calculator. 3.14 times 3 times 3 times 10 gives us 282.6 meters cubed. And that is how we work out the volume of a cylinder. So it's really important to always write out those formulas in full. And then all you have to do underneath is then write in the numbers they correspond to. So let's have a look at this one. So looking at shape A and looking at shape B, I'm going to write out our formula first. What would our radius be? And our radius is 3. So we're going to do 3.14 times 3 times 3. What is our height? So from the bottom of the cylinder to the top, which is 4. So we're going to do 3.14 times 3 times 3 times 4 gives us 113.04. And a really good way to remember the formula is to get yourself either a tube of Pringles or a tin of beans and write out the formula on a post-it note and stick it around a tin in your cupboard. So every time you're opening that cupboard to go and get your biscuits or whatever you're getting for your dinner that night, you're seeing that formula on a daily basis. And it's going to really, really sink in. Okay, let's have a look at our second one. So we've got pi times radius times height. Pi we know is 3.14. Times by our radius, we know here is 8.5 times 8.5. What is our height? It is 20. Let's pop that in our calculator. 3.14 times 8.5 times 8.5 times 20 gives us 4,537.3 meters cubed. We've got our answer. Brilliant. And that is volume complete. In terms of shapes that we are given formulas that we need to remember. Sometimes we might also need to deal with problem questions where we have to do a couple of steps in order to calculate the formula. So a nursery is building an interactive water play centre for their children. The measurements of the water play centre are shown below. 4 to 0.5. Calculate how many litres of water are needed to fill the play centre. So we're going to do our volume first to work out in meters cubed. For 4 times 2 times 0.5 gives us 4 meters cubed. Then to work out how many litres, we know that 1 metre cubed is 50 litres. And if we remember 4 meters cubed, whenever we've done any conversions, always from left to right multiply. So 4 times 50 then gives us 200 litres. And that would be a 2-step answer. It would be a couple of marks what you would gain for one working out the volume and then transferring to litres. So that's with cuboids. Now let's have a look with a volume question with cylinders. So a fish farm needs some new rearing tanks. You need to know how much water one rearing tank will hold. Use the formula to work out how many litres one tank will hold. So always remember, establish what shape you are dealing with. So now we're going to do pi times radius times height. Pi we know is 3.14, multiplied by our radius, which is 1.8 in our question. And then we're going to times it by our height, which is then shown as 1.5. We're going to pop that into our calculator. So 3.14 times 1.8 times 1.8 times 1.5 gives us 15.2604, and that's meters cubed. Now we know 1 meter cubed is 1,000 litres. So if we wanted 15.2604, we're multiplying that 1,000 by that amount because we want 15.264 amounts of that 1,000. So we're going to pop that into our calculator, times by 1,000, which then gives us 15,260.4 litres of water needed in the tank. Okay, as mentioned before, the volumes of cuboids, cylinders and cubes you need to remember the formula for. Sometimes you might be asked to calculate volume when you're given a formula to work with. So sometimes we may be given a formula to find the volume of a shape. The formula to find the area of a trapezium has been given. Calculate the volume of the prism when the volume equals the area multiplied by the depth. So step 1, we need to work out the area of the trapezium here. And we do that by following this and our little diagram. So we know the area equals A plus B divided by 2 and multiplied by H. So area equals A. So where is A on our shape? Well, that's 45, so that's our A. Where's B? Well, that's the bottom, so that's 60. So we're going to do 45 add 60 divided by 2 times by our height. So that's our height times by 20. So the area is 45, 105 divided by 2 times by 20. So 105 divided by 2 is 52.5 times by 20 is 1,050 centimetres squared. And then to work out the volume, we're going to do 1,050 multiplied by the depth, which is then 80, which gives us a total volume of 84,000 centimetres squared, cubed. And that is our volume. So all we've done is follow the formula given to us to work out the volume. Okay, this would be a 1-mark question on your calculator paper. And all you're asked to do is follow this formula to work out the volume of a cone. The best way to do this is write it out in full. So it's saying pi times r, because that's what r squared is, r times by itself, times by h, and then we're going to divide it by 3. So we're going to do 3.14 multiplied by radius, which is 5, times 5, times by 9, because that is our height. So we're going to do that first. 3.14 times 5 times 5 times 9 gives us 706.5. And then our last step is to then divide that answer by 3. Divide by 3 gives us 235.5, and that is our answer. So notice here we didn't have to remember anything other than what that formula meant in full, but we didn't need to know the volume of a cone. Okay, that is given to us and it's all just about following formula. Okay, we are now going to come on to our last subject, which is surface area. Now, surface area is my favourite shape question because it tells you what to do. You are doing the area of the surfaces of a shape. So first, we're going to have a look at the surface area of a cube. So to calculate the surface area of the cube, you find the area at the front of the shape, which is a square, So you're going to do 8 multiplied by 8, which is 64. Then you multiply that answer by the amount of surfaces that it has. So we know a cube has 6 surfaces. So we're going to do the area of the front multiplied by the sides. So 64 times 6 is 384 centimetres squared. So you work out the front and then multiply by its sides. A cuboid is slightly different. Here we have to break down the sides and then add them together. So first we work out the area of the front. So remember, whenever you're working out the area of the front, you're going to do the length times the width. So our front length and width would be 8 times 6. Now, because we want the back measurements, the back is exactly the same as the front. So instead of doing this calculation again, we can just times it by 2. So 8 times 6 is 48, times 2 is 96 centimetres squared. We're then going to do exactly the same to the top. So we're going to do our length, which is 8, multiplied by our width, which is, as you can see, is 3. So 8 times 3 times 2, because we want the bottom, which is exactly the same. 8 times 3 is 24, times 2, which is 48 centimetres squared. And then our last one, which is our sides, our length and width, 6 times 3 times 2, because we want the same. 18 times 2, which is 36. Then we're going to add all these together to get our total, which is 180 centimetres squared. And that is how we work out the surface area of a cuboid. So we're now going to have a go at these. So we've got shape A and we've got shape B. Okay, with a cube, what do we have to calculate first? What do we have to calculate first? We have to work out the front. Okay, well done. So we're going to do 7 times 7, which is 49. And then we multiply that by the amount of sides. So how many sides does a cube have? It has 6. 49 times 6 gives us 49 times 6, 294, and then inches squared, because then remember we're dealing with area again. Okay, brilliant. Now we're going to deal with our cuboid, and we're going to write out our front and back, top and bottom, and our sides. Okay, so our front and back measurements. So our front, I always go front, top, sides like that, so it helps me remember. So our front, we're going to do 5 times 4, then times it by 2. So 5 times 4 is 20, times by 2 is 40 centimetres squared. Our top, 5 times 3, then times by 2, which is 30 centimetres squared. And then our sides, which is 4 times 3 times by 2, which is 24 centimetres squared. And then our total is 94 centimetres squared. Fantastic, well done. Okay, now we're going to deal with a surface area problem question. So James has a contract to paint 30 identical water tanks. He has to paint the outside surfaces of each tank, but not the top. Each surface is rectangular. He knows that 1 tin of paint is enough to cover 12 metres of surface and cost £26.99. Work out the total cost of the tins of paint he will need for all 30 water tanks. So first, because we're doing outside surfaces, we're going to have to establish what shape it is, which is a cuboid. We're going to have to do the surface area of a cuboid. So this is where we're going to have to deal with our front and back. Now, here he has to paint, but not the top. So now we can just write bottom and then sides. Okay, so our front and back measurements. So our front is going to be 1.1 multiplied by 0.6. So 1.1 times 0.6 times 2, which is 1.32 metres squared. Our bottom is 1.1 times 0.8, which is 0.88 metres squared. and then 0.6 times 0.8 times 2, 0.6 times 0.8 times 2, which is 0.96 meters squared. And then what have we got to do? We've got to find the total. So 1.32, add 0.88, add 0.96, pop that into our calculator. And that is 3.16. Now, how many cuboids have we just worked out? We've only worked out one. How many are in our question? 30. So how are we working out now 30? Are we going to do this 30 times? Or what can we do with this number? We can multiply it by 30. So to work out 30 tanks, we're going to do 3.16 times by 30, which gives us a total surface area of 94.8 meters squared. Now we know that one tin of paint covers 12 meters. So how are we going to work out how many tins? Think about your area problem question. We are going to do how many 12s are in 94.8. So 94.8 divided by 12 gives us 7.9 tins. Can we get 7.9 tins? No. So we need 8 tins of paint. And then our last bit is to work out the cost. So we're going to do $26.99 because that's per tin, multiplied how many tins we need. So 8 times £26.99 gives us £215.92. And that is our answer. James will have to pay £215.92. Okay, the last thing that we are going to now work out is the surface area of a cylinder. Now, these questions are quite rare in your exam, but it's really good to know this formula and how to calculate the surface area of a cylinder. So to calculate the surface area of a cylinder, you need to use the formula 2 times pi times radius, and then add 2 lots of pi times radius times the height. So say we had a cylinder that was 6 centimeters in radius and 8 centimeters in height. You're going to imagine you're basically doing the 2 circles and a rectangle to add in our height. So we're going to do pi r squared first. So we're going to do 3.14 times radius. So 3.14 times 6, which gives us 113.04 centimeters squared. I'm going to do that exactly the same again because we want 2 lots of it. 113.04. And then our last bit, we're going to do 2 pi r times height. So we're going to do 2 times 3.14 times by 6 times by our height. So which is 678.24. And we've got one here that we're going to do, one here that we're going to do, and then we're going to add that all together. So our total is 904.32 centimeters squared. And that is how we calculate the surface area of a cylinder. So now what we have got is to work out the volume and surface area of cuboids, cylinders, and cubes. And we have done previously area and perimeter, so now we've done all our shape questions in terms of formulas. So after this session, you will be given revision cards in these areas to then kind of plan, have on your own revision notes, put up somewhere that you can remember to make these formulas easier for you to remember.